Rich, most people don't know anything about HVAC systems. They literally just know that it makes air cool or it makes air warm. How in the world do you even start to dissect how to take care of an HVAC system?
Well, one of the biggest things that I want to kind of start off with, there's a lot of different systems out there. There's split systems, there's package units. So there's a variant, and definitely climate change, climate areas vary as well. So you've got, in this area, we typically deal with heat pump split systems, meaning you have an interior piece that circulates your air inside the home, and then you have an exterior condenser that does the work. So to start off there is basically, typically 98% of the homes here in Charleston, Southeast region, are going to be heat pumps. Heat pump systems are also a reversible system, so that in the wintertime, they do the heating. So again, throughout the country, all over the world, there's so many different types of units, but our conventional unit here is going to be a heat pump. So I guess we'll talk mainly about those.
Yeah. And people, when they buy homes or whether they sell homes, it's even commercial spaces, they say, we need to inspect this. We need to look at the air conditioning system. And you've helped us with that many times. And so when you approach, right, and you go somewhere, how do you start breaking down the health of one of those? And how do people, I guess you probably know if people haven't been maintaining it.
Exactly. So there are many factors that can help improve the longevity of a unit. The number one actually starts day one, and unfortunately, we see it a lot where the unit wasn't installed properly. There are many factors that were either skipped or not addressed. So that's number one. That can have huge impacts on the age of the unit and how how well it does. The other obviously factor is we have the coast here. Salt air is really hard on the exterior pieces of the units. So there's different maintenance things that we can do to address those harsh conditions of the salt air. Coastal regions, they just take a beating with the salt. So,
yeah. John, I know you've maintained a lot of properties as you've owned properties over the years, and you and Rich are up and down ladders and looking at stuff. What have you learned, and where do you see Rich that he comes into that process and really helps things work again? Because sometimes people say, oh, there's no hope for this unit.
No, absolutely. And I say this all the time, but Rich is the one that keeps my company in business. There's no doubt about it. The number one call I get is HVAC units. And Rich and I have been in more attics than I care to share. It's always when it's 98 degrees outside and sunny that we have to crawl up there and do something with one of the units. But no, it's a very challenging climate we have here in the Low Country. Like Rich said, the salt air wreaks havoc on the outside units. And then the lack of maintenance, the lack of preventative maintenance that homeowners, tenants, commercial owners can do. The number one thing Rich always asks me, I say, hey, Rich, the unit's down. What should I do? He said, did you check your filters? And sure enough, 9 times out of 10, I'll go and look at the filters and they're clogged. And when you have a clogged filter, these things, they don't like it and they freak out and they shut down. You'll see right over my shoulder here, you go and you look at your, actually installed by Rich. Thanks, Rich. You go and look at your thermostat and it's blank. Well, guess what? You go up in your attic and your pan is full of water. So there are things that homeowners and commercial business owners can do to maintain their units that don't take much time at all. Once a month, change your filters. Rich always has me go outside with a hose and spray off the outside units. Number one, get the salt off and also get the dirt out of the coils. That really helps these units, especially in the summertime months when today we're going to be 97 degrees. And so these units are going to be working really hard. So you got to maintain them.
Absolutely.
Rich, you said something that got my attention, and I'm sure it got everybody's attention. If you're saying that units aren't installed properly, I mean, my gosh, we hire companies in good faith that they're going to install the HVAC system the right way. So when you approach, and how do you know it hasn't been installed the right way?
So just to give an example, just recently you had a client purchase a unit, and the attic is just It's not taped, not sealed properly with proper sealants on top of those tapes. And that unit, the air handler that's circulating the commercial air, is actually pulling hot, humid air in from the attic because of those deficiencies that they didn't do. It may have looked okay and decent on day one, but again, in the attic, it could be 150 degrees most of the summer. You know, those types of materials that are specific need to be there for the longevity of the unit. So you've got you know, breakdowns of the tape, you know, things of that nature that are just allowing, you know, hot, humid air, attic air that's superheated from the, you know, obviously the roof systems. They just, you know, and that's just really harsh on the unit. It's working tremendously harder. Your efficiency is just, you know, lost altogether.
Yeah.
But that's one of the visual things that you asked about. You know, we can just see that you know, corners were cut, and that's, again, there's so many different locations that air handler can be. It can be up underneath the home. A lot of these homes on the island are raised, so that gives the builders the opportunity to sandwich them, you know, to the garage ceiling areas. But again, even though they're not in a superheated attic, you've got hot, humid air, and typically trapped underneath, you know, a lot of those homes out there, they put skirting, and the humidity down there is just, again, if you're pulling in even 15% of, you know, raw, hot, humid air in, you're losing 15% right there. So when it brings in a lot of different challenges for the system to try to properly remove humidity and moisture, which is the #1 problem that we have here in Charleston. You can cool air, and you can also cool and dry air. A properly working system that's balanced refrigerant wise and sized correctly, and filters, John mentioned filters. All of those things are huge in the systems to be able to dehumidify as well, which is, you know, the #1 factor of how you feel. You can have 75-degree super dry air and it feels great. You can have 68-degree humid air and it's muggy. You don't get that fresh feeling, and it can, you'll have mold and mildew issues in high, you know, bathrooms and stuff that typically you have higher moisture from showers or whatever. Those are typically the places that we start to see mildew on the registers, or, you know, unfortunately, those mold spores get into the system on the interior coils. Once you start there, it's very difficult to rectify typically. So there are things that we can do, and technology has come a long way in efficiency. Being able to communicate, like John's got that thermostat, he's got an app on his phone. He can control it anywhere in the world. So if he leaves town and, you know, wants to make a change or a setting, he can do that remotely. A lot of these systems, well, even I have clients that I'm tied in commercially, basically, to monitor their systems remotely, long before even though typically the homeowner or the company knows that they have an issue. I'm already getting excuse me, I'm already getting an email or a push alert stating that something is not you know, working correctly. And that can help, because you can have a system, and we spoke a little bit about the humidity levels. You can have a system that seems to be working and it's cooling and it's getting to your calling temperature, but it's not working correctly. You're not dehumidifying correctly with each cycle of cooling, and that adds up. So if you're even 5% off each time it circulates and calls, you are basically adding that 5% to your humidity, everything in your carpets, your wood, your furniture. It's not healthy. You know, there's so many negatives to high humidity, and that's crucial. So making sure that the unit is working optimally, you know, and again, to jump back a little bit, if a system isn't installed correctly, even if you have a correct balanced refrigerant system and all the pieces of equipment are actually working correctly, if you have holes in it, you know, you're just going to be entering those, you know, those elements, the humidity. So you lose efficiency and you're pulling in humidity. So that's again, you know, kind of wraps back into that.
So David, that's why we always like, you know, along with our home inspections or commercial inspections, all our clients, we'd like to get Rich in there to take a look at the HVAC system. Because a lot of times the home inspectors, the commercial inspectors, they look at the HVAC system and then they defer to an HVAC specialist. So, real quickly, we get Rich in there, take a look at the unit. He can look at the outside unit, run the numbers on that, get the exact date of manufacture, get the install date, get the type of refrigerant that's in there. He'll get up in the attic. He'll look to see if it's sealed properly. And if it's not, we know we have a problem. We have to go to the seller and say, hey, look, we've got to get this rectified here. Another thing I mentioned is the refrigerant. I know, Rich, you say that all of our laws, our EPA laws, have changed throughout the years, and a lot of these refrigerants that we're looking at in some of these older buildings are no longer manufactured. In fact, they're pretty much illegal now, and the costs have skyrocketed. So tell us a little bit about the different refrigeration types that we have and what to look for.
Yeah, that's a key factor. So yes, the EPA and all the other agencies, you're talking about efficiency ratings. There's a term SEER, S-E-E-R. It's basically a rating of how efficient a system can work. It's typically that is in terms of air conditioning. The government basically wants us to improve our efficiency, so we're not, taxing our electrical grid. So there have been many changes in the refrigerants. I won't go into all the different variants of refrigerants, but so some of them have been completely phased out, and the price per unit, per pound is how they're measured, is through the roof. There are some that I choose not to even have, just because the unit is usually just so old, the efficiency has already been lost, and the cost factor of trying to repair something that old and to purchase and install that expensive refrigerant, because it's difficult to get. It's no longer legally allowed to be produced, and it's very specific. You can't just switch refrigerants. If it's designed for a specific refrigerant, it has to be that specific one. So that's how they've basically pushed the builders and the homeowners to increase their efficiency, as they've regulated the refrigerants to be changed. They're typically the same kind of pieces. There are, and John and we've had many discussions, there are a lot of new systems that are very high efficiency, 20 and over 20 SEER. Typically are, so to jump back, 15 SEER is the new rating for 2023. So all the new pieces of equipment that you can purchase have to be 15 in this region. And I believe, and I don't do a lot, obviously up north, but I believe they can still get some 14 SEER equipment up there. So they come up typically one SEER rating each jump. Where was I? Oh, basically the 23 SEER rating ones are using many factors of variable speeds, lots of sensors, electrical valves that correlate with the very specific temperatures and pressures that are being built. They work very efficient, but most of my clients are commercial clients that have restaurants or businesses that it's crucial, absolutely crucial, that they don't lose dependability. I love the systems when they work, but typically when you add a lot of bells and whistles to those systems, they're more prone to failure. So I like just straight run of the mill, something that's been working for 50 something years. But again, slowly those EPA ratings are pushing that envelope to where they kind of are, kind of pushing us into those high sensors and a little bit more difficult to not only diagnose, repair, and when they freak out, they do, they can get away from you. But they are up and coming. And again, if you choose to do a system like that, you can. You have to be. It's critical that during the install phase that they're doing very specific things, because once a system internally is contaminated, if they don't do things correctly, the longevity of the system is just already compromised. It's almost impossible to get back.
So when you install a brand new unit and you do it perfectly, like it's a perfect install.
Yes, sir.
What's a reasonable, useful life if it's properly maintained, and what are those maintenance steps? Like John had mentioned, he hoses down. I mean, like, do you have a system for, I know it's all in your head, but how do you maintain those to give them the life? And let me make sure, what's my expectation? How long is it going to last?
So again, and because of our coastal region, homes that are on the island, directly on the island, may have a shorter exterior life on that unit. And unfortunately, sometimes we can't just change that exterior piece when it does finally get to the point where it's not working correctly and the parts are just unavailable. Because of those EPA changes, we end up having they kind of force us to change both pieces, which, it gives you a clean slate. You're not piecemealing things, and things are designed to work together as one package. In regards to maintenance, just, keeping up, and it comes back to, there are so many factors. I have clients that need preventative maintenance once a month. These are high smoke and grease restaurant areas, commercial properties. So there's many factors. Each either residential or commercial property is going to need somebody to look at it and say, what are the challenges here? What needs to be addressed as far as either humidity or air quality, which wraps up into humidity. So to basically start that is where it all starts, is each property is going to have different, how many people are coming in and out, lighting, just all sorts of factors. But to basically get your hands and eyes on the property, and then start there. Try to understand what's going to help that system maintain, the best longevity that you can.
Right.
You asked specifically, what would you like to see? I've got units running over 20 years almost. So if they're maintained properly, and they've made correct decisions in the beginning on picking the equipments, you can have them, last a long time.
Yeah.
So there are, many different manufacturers. I'm a Goodman lover. I've been dealing Goodman 20 something years now. I chose Goodman because there are so many distributors here in Charleston that if a part is needed, I can get that usually quickly. Pre-COVID, most all parts were just sitting on the counter ready to go. A lot of the high-end homes on the island are turned into rentals now. When you're paying $15,000 a week for these homes, it's critical that if a system breaks or has a problem, that we can get parts.
Yeah.
So that was number one. The relationship started with that. I've never had an issue. We're 100%. I've never had a compressor failure breakdown. When things are installed correctly, I mean, that comes back to it. Any manufacturer, if it's incorrectly installed, is going to have a hit. I've got another client, actually, it's a property near, it's just up the road, that another contractor, again, didn't do the steps, and he's literally having failures once a year, compressor failures, and compressors just don't fail. They've made them so specifically designed well that if there's a failure for a compressor, 98% of the time it was because of somebody not doing something correct, either along the lines of the life of the unit or from the initial start.
Right.
So
Yeah, so David, these units that Rich is talking about, the Goodman units, it's wonderful because they have a 10-year warranty.
they do.
Which is great, especially in this environment. Rich takes care of a few hundred houses out there on the barrier islands, and he's the first one to tell you that you're on beachfront, man. If you get 5+ years out of one of these things, getting doused with salt all day, that's pretty good. But this Goodman, they stand behind their product, and with a 10-year warranty, which is great. So we like the Goodman units.
So when you, what is a preventative maintenance like? What does that look like for just a normal homeowner? Like, homeowners are probably asking themselves, like, I wonder if it was installed properly. But if they're hands-on and they want to be proactive and make sure that it's operating efficiently, like, how would they go about maintaining it? What do you recommend, Rich?
Well, I do recommend at least a preventative maintenance of once a year. I like to see it right before the humidity starts. To test the systems refrigerant-wise, it's a lot more accurate if we do have some heat in the air. In the wintertime, we can connect, and because of the heat pumps side of that, the equipment that we have, we can check it all year long. But I believe we get a better reading when we have just a little bit of heat in the air, and it's actually having to work. But once a year in the spring, I like to see that, make sure that all the equipment is pulling the correct amps. There's no hidden issues there. There are certain things that we can measure and monitor during that preventative maintenance that will tell us there is a problem. It's not right. We can either avoid a very costly, replacement possibly, because if some of these older systems now, if a major part does fail on them, we can't even get them because of that EPA rating change. Not speaking in specifics of John talked about the Goodman 10-year warranty. Most companies, manufacturers have that, and I want to clarify that is residential. Commercial's got different warranties, so I don't want to confuse anyone there. But to come back a little bit, preventative maintenance wise, once a year for residential. But when we do that initial first walkthrough, you basically got to look at all the challenges of location and what's being demanded of these units.
Yeah.
So,
well, that sounds great. Well, Rich, I appreciate it. If people have questions about just general questions about how, what, when they should do with their HVAC, especially as, we're in some smoking hot temperatures at the time of this recording here in Charleston, South Carolina. What's the best way that they could reach you to run those questions by you?
absolutely. They can reach me on my direct line, which will be 843-343-8291, or my company name, coastalestates@gmail.com. I love phone calls. I like to keep it on a personal level with my clients. I don't do any advertising. It's all referral based. And I feel that if I'm not working hard enough for my clients to go out and spread the word of who they trust and who they want touching their equipment and their property, that I'm not doing it correctly. So I appreciate your relationships and what you guys do for us as well.
And let me just add, not only does Coastal Estates take care of HVAC units, but they do refrigeration, they do property maintenance. So pretty much anything that goes wrong in your property, Rich's company can take care of it for you. And he's been doing a fantastic job for my business and all of my personal stuff as well. My extended family's personal stuff for over 15 years. So just a super trusted company and great to work with. So thank you, Rich.
I appreciate it. Thank you. And apologize for 4 years ago for Christmas, my youngest daughter requested a green-cheeked conure, which is a parrot. And I probably should have, I covered him up, but probably should have given him like some fruit or something before we started. I apologize.
I was just glad it wasn't your HVAC making noise like that.
Not a squeaky fan motor. It's not.
Yeah, Rich will take care of you. Very easy to talk to, and it's intimidating. I have to tell you, like I don't know as much about John and obviously Rich on the HVAC equipment, but I feel better when they look at things for our clients. And it's amazing what we find, because you always need an HVAC inspection, no matter if you get a commercial inspection or a residential inspection. You have to know what you're getting into. It's one thing to know what you're getting into. It's another thing to just kind of think it's going to last forever. But now I have a whole different perspective. So Rich, thanks for being here.
Absolutely.
With us, and I'll post all your contact information in this as well so people can find you.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Have a great day, guys.